In a clearing deep in the forest of Iwure, a young fairy named Ayo was picking berries when she heard a rustling in the bushes. She froze, her heart racing in her chest. The war between the demons of Ijapa and the fairies of Iwure had been going on for as long as she could remember, and encounters between the two were rare and dangerous. Slowly she reached for her wand, ready to defend herself if she had to, but as the rustling got louder, she saw a figure step out of the bushes. It was a demon, his skin dark as night, with bright red eyes and sharp claws. Ayo's heart skipped a beat, but she stood her ground. To her surprise, the demon didn't attack. Instead, he looked at her with curiosity, his red eyes sparkling in the sunlight. Ayo watched him carefully, unsure of what to do. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. Then, to Ayo's shock, the demon spoke. "Hello, fairy," he said in a deep, rumbling voice. "I mean you no harm." Ayo was taken aback. Demons were known for being fierce and violent, not polite. "What do you want?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. The demon took a step closer, his eyes locked on hers. "I only want to talk to you," he replied. Ayo studied the demon, trying to decide if she could trust him. His eyes were intense, but not threatening. There was a sadness in them that she couldn't quite understand. "What do you want to talk about?" she finally asked. The demon paused, as if searching for the right words. "I have lived a long time," he said, "long enough to see that this war is pointless, long enough to know that there must be a better way." Ayo frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean that I don't believe in this war anymore," the demon said. "I think we should find a way to live together in peace." Ayo shook her head. "That's impossible. We've been fighting for centuries. How could we just stop?" The demon looked pained. "I know it won't be easy, but I also know there are good beings on both sides who want to live in peace. Isn't that worth fighting for?" Ayo thought about his words. They were bold and hopeful, but also a bit crazy. For a moment, she felt a spark of hope. I don't know," she finally said. "It's just hard to imagine a world without war." The demon nodded, understanding in his eyes. "I get it, but I believe anything is possible if we work together. Will you help me, fairy?" Ayo hesitated, then nodded. "Yes," she said, "I'll help you." The demon smiled, a genuine smile that made him seem almost human. "Thank you," he said. "My name is Teo. What's yours?" Ayo smiled back. "I'm Ayo." And with that, a friendship began that would change everything. Long before Ayo and Teo met, there was a time when demons and fairies lived together in harmony. They shared the same lands, resources, and beliefs. It was a time of peace and happiness, a time when both sides celebrated each other's victories and mourned each other's losses. But everything changed when a group of rogue demons decided to invade the fairy kingdom. They were greedy and wanted to take control of the fairies' magic for themselves. The fairies were caught off guard, and many were killed in the attack. Those who survived fled into hiding, their homes and lands destroyed. But the fairies didn't give up. They quickly organized a counterattack, fighting with all their strength and using their magic to protect themselves. The demons were strong, but the fairies were quick and clever, able to dodge their attacks and strike back. The war continued for years with no end in sight. Both sides suffered heavy losses, but neither wanted to back down. They were so set in their beliefs that they couldn't imagine a world where the other side existed. In the middle of it all were the innocent beings, those who wanted nothing to do with the war but still got caught in the crossfire. Homes were destroyed, families torn apart, and children left orphaned. It was a time of darkness and sadness, when hope seemed lost. But even in the chaos, some believed peace was still possible. They fought not just for their own survival, but for the survival of all beings, demon and fairy alike. And so the war raged on, with no end in sight. But little did they know, a new dawn was about to rise, bringing a glimmer of hope. Iwure and Tayo's friendship grew stronger with each passing day. They met in secret, hidden from prying eyes and judgmental ears. They talked for hours, sharing their hopes, fears, and dreams. As time went on, their friendship blossomed into something more. They fell in love, something that was considered forbidden in their societies. The fairies believed demons were evil and should be destroyed, while demons thought fairies were weak and should be dominated. The idea of a fairy and a demon being in love was unthinkable, and anyone caught in such a relationship would face serious punishment. But Iwure and Tayo didn't care. They loved each other deeply and were willing to risk everything to be together. Their relationship wasn't easy. They had to always be on guard, making sure no one caught them meeting. They couldn't be seen together in public and had to be careful not to leave any evidence of their love. Despite the challenges, Iwure and Tayo's love only grew stronger. They were each other's light in the darkness, the one thing that kept them going in a world filled with hate and war. But as the war continued, Iwure and Tayo knew they had to be cautious. If anyone found out about their relationship, it could mean the end of everything they had built together. They knew their love was forbidden, but they couldn't help how they felt. They were two beings who had found comfort in each other, and they refused to let the war tear them apart. As tensions between the demon and fairy armies grew stronger, it seemed no one could agree on a way to peace, and the fighting only got worse. Iwure and Tayo had been fighting side by side, determined to protect each other and their love from the chaos. But soon they faced a challenge that threatened to tear them apart. Tayo had been given a mission by the Demon King to capture and kill Iwure, the fairy healer who had been causing trouble for the demon army. At first, Tayo refused, not wanting to betray the one he loved, but the Demon King was persistent, threatening to kill Tayo if he didn't follow orders. Feeling trapped and helpless, Tayo made the hard choice to go through with the mission. He approached Iwure under the pretense of wanting to talk, but as they walked deeper into the forest, his true intentions were revealed. Iwure was shocked and heartbroken to see Tayo pointing a sword at her, ready to take her life. She tried to reason with him, pleading for him to remember their love and to see the value of life beyond the war. But Tayo was torn. He knew what he was doing was wrong, but he also knew he couldn't disobey his king without facing consequences. As they stood in the forest, sword in hand, Iwure and Tayo's relationship was put to the ultimate test. The love they had fought so hard to protect was now threatened by the very forces they had been battling against. Tayo's voice shook with emotion. "I have to make a choice. We can't just stand by and watch our worlds destroy each other." "But what about us? What about our love?" Iwure asked, her voice trembling. In that moment, Iwure showed mercy and compassion. Their love burned bright even as the battlefield raged around them. They knew they had to end this war once and for all, but at what cost? Iwure took a deep breath. "I am willing to sacrifice myself for peace," she said. "I will use my magic to seal the demon world away, so our worlds can exist separately." Tayo took his hand. "Our love will transcend worlds," she said. "I will always love you, no matter where we go." Tayo embraced her, tears streaming down his face. "I love you," he whispered. Iwure closed her eyes and began to chant. The sky crackled with energy as she summoned her magic. A beam of light shot forth from her hands, enveloping the demon world. Teo watched in horror as the world he had fought to protect was sealed away. He fell to his knees, heart heavy with grief. But as he looked up at Ao, he realized her sacrifice was not in vain. For the first time in centuries, there was peace between their worlds. Teo stood up, new determination shining in his eyes. "I will never forget your sacrifice," he said. "I will fight for a world where love can exist without fear." Ao smiled weakly. "I know you will," she said, "and I will watch over you, always." With those final words, Ao's body dissolved into light. Ao stood at the edge of the battlefield, heavy with the weight of what had happened. He knew it had to be done, but it didn't make it any easier. As he looked out at nothingness, he remembered the first time he had met Ao. It was years ago, before the war had even begun. Teo had been wandering through the woods, lost in thought, when he stumbled upon a clearing. And there she was, Ao, dancing in the moonlight with her fairy friends. Teo had been captivated from the moment he saw her. He had never seen anything so beautiful. So, he had approached her, hoping to strike up a conversation. At first, Ao had been wary, and rightfully so. The demons and fairies had always been enemies, and Teo knew that being in her world could be seen as a threat. But he had persisted, determined to win her trust. As they talked, Teo found himself drawn to Ao's kind heart and free spirit. She was everything he had never known he wanted. Even though he knew it was forbidden, he couldn't help but fall in love with her. Thinking back on that night, Teo realized that Ao had shown him how to love life. Before he met her, he had been consumed by his hatred for the fairies and his desire for power. Ao had opened his eyes to the beauty of the world around him, and so the demon and fairy worlds existed separately, but their love remained intertwined. The sacrifices made in the final battle would be remembered for generations, a testament to the power of love and the lengths one will go to protect it.